people! The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking satanists is Vinny's jokes. And welcome, ladies, gentlemen, to yet another exciting episode of The Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live from thevinnyeastwoodshow.com, carried, of course, by our wonderful network, Ground Zero Radio. And I'm incredibly grateful to be part of this network. And also, I did a little bit of audio sampling the other night, ladies and gentlemen, because the Vinny Eastwood Show just sounded just so horribly overblown. And it's like, if you don't got the audio, you don't got a show, bro. And so hopefully it's all sounding nice and fantastic for you all. Shout out to all the people in the chat room. Facebook, YouTube and Twitch are live. For those of you listening in New Zealand, we appear to be starting the show a little bit late. And let me explain something to you. There's this thing called daylight savings, and when you're doing a show in New Zealand to America, every time New Zealand has its daylight savings or America has its daylight savings, it changes the real time that I actually have to do my show at. So when New Zealand changes our daylight savings, the show gets delayed by an hour, and then the United States changes their daylight savings an hour later, right? So it's like a month in between this change. But now, the new official time of the show for the duration of this next season through till March is going to be midday New Zealand Standard Time on Mondays and Sundays 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our wonderful cohorts in the United States of America. Our CWCB 99 is in the chat room of Twitch already. Lovely to have you with us, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. And also just all of those people who donate and support the show and have been doing so for a very long time. I want to give you a little bit of a special mention here because often it's not really so much a recognized role as being a producer, as it were. People just see the talent and what they're doing, and they might really consider the director or something of that nature, but the producer is the person who produces things, right? Something needs to happen, the producer produces it in order so that the show can go on. They're a highly undervalued group of people. And I was just looking through my Skype messages before the show, and I had a message there from my wonderful former somewhat fabulous producer, Mr. Mitch Santel in Southern California. And it just reminded of how much work he did to get me to where I am, helped me create a website, got me on a American Freedom Radio back in the day. And since that time, there have been innumerable people who've contributed to the show, whether those people in the chat rooms who give me a little bit of a buzz and ask questions and things of that nature and do their little interactions there. Every single one of them is like incredibly valuable. And there's all those financial contributors, people who pay my bills for me exactly when the bill is due. I don't have enough money yet, but when the bill actually needs to be paid, I've suddenly got enough. Like, this is what happens when you're working within the confines of what the universe requires of you. You don't have what you want when you want it, but you have what you need when you need it. And all of those of you who financially contributing may not realize just how much you have reduced the amount of anxiety and stress and uncertainty that people in this sphere normally experience. And I've been experiencing quite a bit of it of late, due to a number of other things going in my life and filmmaking and so on and so forth. Just in a big stressful state, Vinny Eastwood is. And I just want to just start the show off by being grateful to each and every one of you for going to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com, signing up to be our patron, and using the PayPal and the Kiwi Bank respectively. And those automatic payments help to pay those bills on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis, especially when you're running out of butter and toilet paper for some reason simultaneously. Anyway, Today, I was supposed to have on Lauren Young, the Anarchy Girl, but we're having some massive technical issues with her Skype. She seems to be unable to connect with us. I've told her if she does eventually get this thing sorted, just call right in. We'll bring her in live. But for the moment, it's about how anarchists oppose the New World Order. What is an anarchist? They're somebody who doesn't want any rulers. They don't want anybody to be a master, and they don't want anybody to be a slave. It's the quintessence of freedom in general. And freedom's actually relatively important to me, because if you don't have it, you really don't have anything else worth having. Okay? It's all very well, I'm sure, for some of the people in this world to do what other people tell them to do, and to not have time to do the things that they are creatively wanting to do. And they get rewarded significantly, financially, socially, by society for taking that route. And it's very, very different when you don't like somebody telling you what to do. You can only really work with people rather than for them. So it really does dry up a lot of things that would ordinarily be quite moist. But I digress. I'm thinking about this concept of freedom. How actually important is freedom? If you look at what they call society, which is you, me, everybody, right? We're all existing simultaneously together. We're co-creating reality, and we are suffering currently under probably one of the most surreptitious forms of sedition and scumbaggery that has actually ever existed on the planet. There hasn't been scumbaggery like this before, or at least in recorded history. Sometimes the scumbaggery is more overt and tyrannical, with swords and clubs being used to keep people in mind. But the kind of scumbaggery that we're dealing with currently is a mind control scumbaggery. Of course, this has been used in the past, with religion being used to control people, kings, queens, so on and so forth. They anoint themselves some kind of a title that makes people submit to them and makes that submission appear virtuous rather than cowardly or foolish or lazy or apathetic. Right? Right? That's what we're dealing with right now. It's a confirmation that the individual is the supreme being. Okay? And I'm not talking about some kind of narcissistic, witchy type thing. Just take down to the brass tacks. You have a look at a forest. All right, a forest exists. You can say that that's true, right? Just like you could say that a government exists. Now, can you touch a forest? No, you can't. You can touch a tree, just like you can't touch a government. You could touch a government employee, right? It's because these things are, as J. Edward Griffin calls it, an abstraction. All right? You're taking one thing and you're grouping them together in an artificial psychological manner to make you think that this one thing is bigger than it actually is. And what that does is it promotes a collectivist mindset. What that, in effect, has on your perception is the perception that the collective is the only thing that really matters. What matters is this big government idea. What matters is this big forest idea. No, it doesn't. It comes down to the individual employees. It comes down to the individual trees. And if one of them is sick, that means the whole system is sick. We're dealing with an illness, all right? A mental illness, if you will, that is designed in a lab. And I'm not joking here. They actually have had lab tests. They've created technologies, psychological techniques, education programs, organizations, hierarchies, and various things that can be deployed either by themselves or successively. And what this has done to you, to me, to everybody, and I don't want to insult you here because this is not your fault. It's not my fault either. I didn't create the rules. I'm an idiot. And you're an idiot. All right? Sounds very insulting, isn't it? But I'm not doing it as an insult. Doing it just as a statement of fact. Not because we do foolish things or we're not terribly bright or something like that, but simply by comparison. If we had not had the poisons, the propaganda, the cultural misnomers, the religious mind control, etc., we'd all be way, way smarter than we currently are. And that means that we have to take a look at ourselves and just go, you know what? It's not my fault, but society has turned me into an idiot to a large degree. All the things that I could have done in a society that valued the individual, that valued raising people up in terms of their consciousness, was not available to me. We had the internet, when I was younger. We don't really have the internet anymore. We have a net that captures people, captures their minds. Shows like this, I scarcely believe that we'll be running for too much longer, principally because it might become illegal. And in countries like New Zealand, you can make things illegal retroactively, as happened to my counterparts, Counterspin Media in New Zealand, who posted a link to a documentary about the Christchurch Mosque Massacre, which held within it footage of the Christchurch Mosque Massacre. Now, that link that they'd posted was not under the reprimand of the Chief Censor's Office at that time. They added it a couple of days later. And then a couple of months later, a documentary called Fire and Fury was released, which was basically shameful propaganda against the various truth movement figures of New Zealand, Counterspin, of course, being the main ones featuring in that documentary. And soon thereafter, they were raided, and their tech guy was raided, and all their equipment was confiscated, and they've been going through court for months and months and months. Personally, myself and Billy TK, we went through 28 months, each of us, for ostensibly, if you have a look at the charges under the COVID-19 rules, we were guilty, and we were found guilty of standing within 2 meters of somebody else. All right, 28 months in court, guys. And this whole element that is basically coercing people. There's lots of people in New Zealand and lots of people around the world who are being persecuted, shunned, shadow banned, deplatformed, and demonetized, and so on and so forth, because of their stance, because of how they went about it. And as Maria West on the One Great Work Network said, she learned that when you go hard up against these people and try to attack them, they defend themselves and they destroy you. But if you are instead trying to help out those people who are its ostensive victims and things of that nature, it doesn't necessarily get you above the radar. Now, this is all wishful thinking, of course, because Maria and myself, and I think maybe everybody else in the truth movement has been wrong, either on a consistent basis or just on a regular basis, principally because we don't know what we're dealing with exactly. We've got pretty damn good idea that we're dealing with a highly technologically advanced group of black male satanic drug running kind of gun running propagandists, mind controllers in their occult ceremonies and stuff like that. There's a big soup of stuff, and it takes you 10,000 hours to even get a handle on it in the first place. And most people are simply not willing, and even more people are simply not able to do that research. For two reasons. One, they're too distracted. They got too much entertainment in their lives designed to distract them from reality. Or two, they're actually not physically intelligent enough They don't have the IQ that is big enough to be able to process large amounts of information and put it into a system in your head where you can understand where things connect and stuff of that nature. Have you ever seen those movies where they wind up finding some guy who's like obviously completely crazy and some kind of a terrorist or whatever, and he's got like a wall and it's got all these pins and all these red strings tied between the pins, tying all these people and all of these organizations together and what all their influences are and things of that nature. That's how you actually work out how things work. That's throughputs, inputs, processing, output. Okay? That's how you get a working model of how things are working. Now, I'd like to say, Donna Lee and Tone Deaf, thank you so much for joining us in the YouTube chat there, and also Kiwi Radio NZ for joining us in the Twitch chat. And for those of you who are wanting to listen to this show, you can go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and there's MP3s on the top tab of there where you can listen to the shows and things of that nature. It was very lovely. Ralphie from Kiwi Radio NZ did that all for me, and I'm incredibly grateful for his help and support, and to everyone. Now, Tone Deaf has come up with a thing. He doesn't have he doesn't have a low IQ. And you know, God bless you. That means you're capable of understanding the things that are being explained, because honestly, you do have to be reasonably intelligent to have any idea what's going on. Even any idea, even if it's even 1% of idea, you have to be reasonably bright. And it's difficult because as somebody who doesn't believe in masters and slaves and the systems of government and things of that nature, most people wonder what the alternative is. It's all they've ever known. You've only ever known state institutions brainwashing you. You've only ever known mass media corrupting you and coercing your conformity. You've only ever known NPC characters, these people who have limited responses, who don't know who they are, who don't operate with an independent mindset. They're simply programmed and just do what everybody is doing. That's what's problematic about this society. That's why I think a lot of people in this movement have a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, justifiably so, because at any moment the government could issue a decree saying being somebody who thinks freedom in any way, shape or form is now an enemy of the state, and you should report your neighbours. And people will do it. Just like that. Immediately. They won't be able to help themselves. And then we're all going to education camps, you know, and the camps, things of that nature. Allegedly, these things are already being built. They've got a plan. We don't. And that means that they're going to win, because we've got no organised, unified front to resist them. Because any front that comes up, let's say Billy TK comes up, well, his party got infiltrated. They built his website for him and then took it away. They helped to build his database of donors for him and then stole that. And now Billy is struggling to survive. They saw me. I had 65,000 YouTube subscribers, and the largest online protest log of anybody in the country's history. Maybe I'm pretty sure nobody in the world has actually really wanted to go out and document in long form all the protest activity and stuff like that was happening in their thing. So I could probably reasonably confidently say it was probably the largest online archive of protests and public meetings ever created, and did all that in my 20s and early 30s, and now I'm going to be 40 in a month or so. Haven't even had time to plan my party, and don't even have the resources to really even have a party, even if I wanted one. You see, that's what they do. They find the troublemakers and they neutralize them. And that's what will happen to you if you become to be successful. Isn't that depressing? you know? I've been feeling real sad lately, left out in the cold, as it were, by my fellow truth community and what have you. And it's just like, you know, when you're feeling incredibly depressed and it's very difficult to motivate yourself to do even basic things, like even making yourself a breakfast in the morning, or even getting out of bed becomes difficult. And that's what this system is designed to do. Just to destroy you. Make you a part of their machine, a part of the machine that is not supposed to be there, a part of the machine that does not work anymore. And they're very successful at it because they've been doing it for quite some freaking time. Now, I believe that there's a possibility that we can turn this around. It's only a possibility, though. I don't under any stretch of the imagination really count this as too much of a certainty, principally because there isn't really a whole bunch of evidence currently that there is an organised truth movement, that there is an organised fight, that it has significant amounts of power to oppose the varying capacities of the New World Order. Do we have the capacity to stop them from putting fluoride into the water? In New Zealand, it's been mandatory, and it's not getting taken out anytime soon. Do we have the ability to stop the pesticides being put in our food supply? No. People will be like, oh, well, just grow your own food, or go organic or something like that. And you're like, okay, these are great solutions because they give you the independence to be able to learn how to grow your own food and provide for your family in that manner. And all you have to do is just quit earning money and going out and doing anything in any other way, shape or form just so that you can have good food, okay? Or spend more money than you got just in order to be able to get enough food and then not be able to do anything else. You see what they've done here? They've created a system that is so inescapable, all right? To resist it is to be beaten. That's basically the lesson of the truth movement. Have a look at myself and Billy TK at our protest on August 18th, 2021. There's a documentary on my website, The Day Democracy Died. If you go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and go and watch that, that was our warning to the people of New Zealand that now we are slaves, now we can't protest, now we can't do anything. The government has turned completely tyrannical, and now new methods of resistance beyond that of peaceful protest are going to be necessary if you want to make any progress. Did anybody who went down to the Wellington protest listen or view that example with any thought? Perhaps. They certainly weren't the organisers of that protest, and so that protest had hundreds of police officers roll into it with sound cannons and EMF weapons and pepper spray and riot shields. You know, they were up against old ladies, right? Who were holding hands and chanting peace and love for the most part. Like this was the most organised resistance that New Zealanders could muster, because of course this happened after the New Zealand government took everybody's guns, and then the person who allegedly did this shooting and what have you decided that he would plead guilty on the first day of lockdown, of course, when no media would be allowed to be there and report on it or question it. You see? You see how that works? They've got plans. Real good plans. We don't got no plans. The person who come up with probably the best plan that I've heard so far, two of them really, and they oppose each other's views to a degree. But they're really in agreement. And this is something you'll find in the truth movement over and over again. People with opposing views who actually really agree. And you don't know why they're getting so uppity and so angry at each other, because you listen to what the points that they're making and they actually agree with each other. What are you doing, bro? All right, so I've got this idea that people can get along just so long as they agree to principles of interaction, you know. And there's a lot of people in this movement, a lot of them, maybe even the majority of talk radio show hosts, YouTubers, I love the new term influencer. I influence people and anti-influential. You know, I don't like those labels and things of that nature, because it's just all new language that's coming up, what Orwell called new speak, where you change the language. You change it in such a way that, you know, those words that really mean something, that resonate, that have a frequency to them, that are really capable of describing exactly what you're dealing with. They want to get rid of those words. They want to dumb down the language so that nobody would actually be able to describe the very enemy that they're up against. How would you defeat an enemy you can't even describe, let alone oppose? You see? They've worked this system quite well. And as Jacqueline Gilderwell in the chat says, they have plans and people to just do as they are told. This is the cult of the order follower. All right, now, if you're not an order follower, you've got advantage over the order follower, really, because you're able to think independently. You're able to move in directions that maybe they wouldn't be able to predict or be able to respond to through a chain of command. This is a movie called Enemy of the State, where Gene Hackman's character is explaining to Will Smith's character that they have a system in place that is capable of picking out keywords from conversations that are happening from phone calls all across the United States and red flag them for analysis. And this was like in the 80s. All right, they were capable of doing this. Imagine the things they have now. This microphone that I've got right here in front of my face, that's sending out a signal online. They know what I'm saying. And of course, even when I'm offline, that microphone is probably still being used to surveil me. I've got microphones in these computer screens around me, and microphones on my phone, and so on and so forth. These things are running all the time with massive AI supercomputers, to the point where at one point I think the United States was experiencing brownouts. Okay, that's not a blackout, not the lights on, but the lights going dim and not being on quite as bright, and like shutting down and then coming back up and stuff like that. And the reason why that was happening is because the amount of energy that they had to use to just data store and all the information that they're mining off of everybody was so great that it was overwhelming the power grid of the United States. That's how much info they've got on us. They know you better than you know yourself. They know everything you've ever done, everything you've ever said, and can recall it and go back and look at it. Any one of us who immediately, like just the second we decide to do something that is even slightly effective and we start doing it, that we will be pinpointed, and then they will get all the information that they've ever gotten on us and then find out how to use that to take us out. All right, it's like we're our own worst enemies. We don't know tradecraft. There was this organization called Black Lives Matter. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but there was a video that was put out of somebody trying to infiltrate this organization, and he noticed that this organization was using tradecraft. Tradecraft is the craft of the intelligence agencies, all right? As in using burner phones, disguising themselves, going to secret locations and things of that nature, changing those locations at the last minute, so on and so forth. Anything they can do to stay ahead of surveillance and under the radar. Okay, where do you think the leaders of that organization learned it? They're trained, paid assets of the establishment. This is what we call astroturf. All right, there are grassroots movements, ordinary people coming together to oppose something that is trying to destroy them, and astroturf, where the people who are trying to destroy that group of people create their own little movements to oppose our grassroots ones and attract all the people who would join grassroots movements if they knew that they were genuine or if they'd ever heard about them. They instead join the AstroTurf organisations instead, and eventually they may, or may not, for that matter, recognise that the organisations that they're funding, the organisations that they're supporting, the organisations that are doing all these actions that are getting all this media hype and all this name and brand recognition are not genuine. And they're not run by genuine people. They're not run by people who care. They're not by people who principally believe in the concept of freedom. No. They're just working against you and everything you stand for on a daily basis. This is why it's so confusing for people, because it's impossible. I say again, it's impossible to figure out who's really telling the truth in any given moment. You know, some of us have got really good instincts, some of us have got journalistic training, but the second you go and you try to use that journalistic training or use those instincts, the waters will be muddied and the truth will become compounded and confused. That's why it's so effective, what they're doing here. The whole idea behind the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency, or formerly monikered the OSS before its name changed, is they had to sow confusion during World War II amongst their opponents. They'd do things like hijack a train car that was full of mail that was bound for Nazi high command. They'd open all those letters, rewrite little details, and then put the box back on the tracks and send it back in a long time to Nazi command. So they didn't know where their troops were. They thought the people down the hall were plotting against them. You see, they promoted so much confusion that the Nazi war machine, which was probably the most significant military force that had really ever been developed at that point in history, with the Blitzkrieg lightning war tactics and so on and so forth, they were practically helpless by comparison to what they could have been if they were organised, if they knew who to trust, if they knew what truth was. But they didn't, because their enemy deliberately sabotaged all of those efforts, exactly the same way that our efforts to do the same thing are being sabotaged, because we are now the enemy. We are the enemy. Okay? And don't forget that. Society itself runs under the rules and dictates of these New World Order controllers. The New World Order controllers consider us an enemy. That means the general public considers us an enemy. And don't forget that, okay? Don't forget that. You're going to go out and you're going to try and save these people, and you'll be really shocked and surprised that they call the cops on you, that they snitch on you, that they assault you, that they sabotage and steal things from you. This has happened to me. Every time you go out to a protest, every time you go out in public and try to do any kind of quote-unquote real-world influencing, you are taking a significant risk. A big risk. And it's not like if you just sit at home and are broadcasting on the radio only that you're not still taking a risk. Yeah, you are. There is no safety in this movement. At any point, you could become successful and immediately become a threat. It's almost like it's a better idea to remain completely unsuccessful at what you're doing so that you stay below the radar so that nobody really knows who you are. But that's not how it works. We have to be successful. We have to be organised. And I'm simply not the kind of person, and maybe you're not either, capable of recognising this fact and doing something about it. Organising people is a matter of systems. There was this guy, Dr. Shiva, I forget his last name or whatever, but he's running for the President of the United States. And he says that what's happening with the establishment is that they are creating their own messiahs to placate the public into continuing to support the establishment. people like Trump, people like Elon Musk. These people aren't on your side. They may look like it from time to time, just so that you will still have that deniability. Right? When people have hope, that's a good thing. Even false hope, it is said. And these people, on the other hand, despite the fact that they might give you hope, right, in the political system that has betrayed you every single time it's been allowed to operate, mind you, that somehow it's just not going to work that way anymore. Because of the right person did it. No. Don't you see? They've controlled the entire system, and if anybody starts to get above the parapet, it would, like, if they can deplatform Vinny Eastwood, if they can destroy the reputation of Billy DK, if they could deplatform Alex Jones, and so on and so forth, how on earth are the rest of them getting away with it? Okay? It's not terribly difficult to figure out that the larger the movement you have, the less likely it is that you're genuine and on the level, because the shadow banning and things of that nature apparently just doesn't seem to work. It's because they're not targeting them. It's because they're not telling you the things that you really need to know. So, what do you really need to know if you want a society that doesn't have tyranny, that actually has freedom? Well, the founding fathers of the United States had a lot of thoughts on this, many of them true, some of them not quite so true. The whole idea that every man is created equal, no, they're not. Some of us come from wealthy families. Some of us have incredibly intelligent parents. Some of us had parents that had a lot of time to raise us and educate us, to get us into the right schools and the right programs and things of that nature. And before we know it, we're getting recruited by Skull and Bones, and now we're running the country for the benefit of the New World Order. We're not all created equal. We have choices that we can make to make ourselves better, but never underestimate the fact that if you're born to certain parents at a certain time in history, in a certain location, that gives you a general metric for how you're going to end up. A general metric. Some people escape. There are things like the rulers are really personified in the exceptions. Okay, there's plenty of people who've come from broke-ass backgrounds, terrible upbringings and things of that nature, who've gone on to become very successful business people and are still very devout in their beliefs of being good to people, because they've seen the harm that what not doing good for people really brings about. All right, these are the people that we really want to be thinking about. People who have a track record, as Russell Malcolm told me one time ago, of self-sacrifice for the good of others. That's who your leaders are. Has Trump been around sacrificing himself, for the good of others? No. Has Elon? No? Okay. They're not people who have a track record that is appropriate for what you want to do out of leadership. Have a look at, say, for example, Dr. Rima Labo. What has she sacrificed, including her husband, General Bert Stubblebine, in the fight against the New World Order and all of their medical cartel BS. She's like an amazing lady. That's the kind of person you want to be one of your leaders, and she is. But of course, what's happened to her? Same thing that's happened to me. Just been kept out of the public eye to a large degree, even falling from great heights, as it were. So this is the thing that's very difficult to get a hold of in terms of getting your head around this, is that it is your independence. What are you doing about it? Not what I'm doing about it, not what he over there is doing about it, but what are you doing about it? I mean, and it's not that hard to do at least something about it. Have you stopped drinking fluoridated water? That's doing something about it. Have you stopped eating high fructose corn syrup? That's doing something about it. Have you got a hard line coming to your computer rather than Wi-Fi? That's doing something about it. There's a million things that you could be doing, and you can't do them all at once. You can't. There's too many things. And you can't just put too much pressure on yourself that you have to solve all the world's problems. You can't, because you didn't create them all. So it's not within your power to solve them all. However, by our passive acceptance of the wheel of progress of this juggernaut of New World Order-y scumbaggery, we have allowed this thing to happen. And therefore, the most forgotten word, or the forgotten word rather, according to Mark Passio, is no. Just start saying no, little bit by little bit, and do it in front of people too, so that they can see somebody saying no. You will inspire a lot of people. A number of people have come up to my presence and told me in person or even online that if it wasn't for me and Billy TK during the pandemic and so on and so forth, they would have committed suicide, or they would have gone nuts, or they don't know what they would have done. We helped them get through because we gave them hope. Hope is important. It allows people to keep on living, man. LIVRN. That's what's important. Your life. Because when you're alive, you can do practically anything. Practically anything with your time. You could choose to quit your job and start a local community garden. You could clean out your garage that's been, or your, I forget what the American term is for it. I believe they call it a garage too, don't they? What, a shed, a wardrobe, a kitchen. Doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Is it filthy? Is it disorganized? Get your shit together. You're up against people who have got trillions of dollars to bankroll slaves with guns, propagandists with broadcast networks, and things of that nature to fight against you. And you can't even keep your room clean. You're a sitting duck. That's the realization that we all got to come through. We are sitting ducks here. And unless we start flying away and start organizing ourselves first, and then organizing together and uniting second, then we're in trouble. We're already in trouble, but we're going to be even in worse trouble if we don't get our shit together. Right? In ways that it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how much trouble we're in, and I don't even want to tell you how much trouble you're in specifically, because you might become so frightened by the reality. Okay? Just take my word for it. You don't want to know how bad things are. You may think that you know how bad things are, but it's probably 10 to 10,000 times worse than you could possibly imagine. And I'm saying this from experience. Every time I think I know how bad things are, they get infinitely worse in ways that are completely incomprehensible to me. And each time I begin to comprehend it just a little bit more, it gets even worse. It's like a fractal. The more you zoom into the problem, the more problems start coming out and just completely overwhelming you. My goodness! We're in a dangerous situation, a life-threatening situation. Your kids won't be able to even have kids. All right? Whether by them becoming sterilized, by having their little baby testicles and baby wombs irradiated 24/7 by various electromagnetic Wi-Fi type crap. Whether they get cancer as a child because of the same reason. There's not going to be another generation, like practically. That's why it's so important for all of us to do everything that we can right now. Everything to improve ourselves. Stop worrying about helping other people. If you don't have your shit together, don't help anybody else. All right, just go, no, sorry, mate, I'm working on me. I'm trying to get myself together. so that my head is clear, so that I've got resources, so that I've upped my skills and talents in my various areas of expertise. I want to be able to be in that position so that I will be capable of organizing and teaching other people about these things that they do not yet know and desperately need to be filled in as soon as humanly possible. And I won't be able to do that unless I look good, sound good, and appear to have my shit together. That's it. You know how long it takes to create a first impression with somebody? 1/1000th of a second. That first impression is made. The second they see you, that's when the first impression is made. Do you look healthy and do you look wealthy? Basically, that's it. That's the only thing that human beings have ever really been programmed to do. Have a look at all the people that have all these amazing followings, celebrities and the like. Do they look like crap? No, they don't. Do they look like they're broke? No, they don't. So they immediately have the first impression correct. So people will just go, oh, this person must know what they're talking about because they look healthy and they look like they've got money. Yeah, see, and sometimes that's a deception. Sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's just a deception. But if it's not true, 70% of people will go with their first impression anyway. You know? If they have a look at you and they see that you're ugly and you're not dressed well and your studio looks like crap and what have you, 70% of them will immediately switch off, not take you seriously. And they can't be convinced otherwise. The other 30% of people, they'll have the exact same first impression, generally speaking, but they may be able to be convinced otherwise. It's principle psychological. That's how mankind has developed. Women and men who are of maturity are looking for breeding partners, ostensibly, right? Just in a basic sense of the word, who can provide me with money and stability so that my offspring can survive. The basic instinct. And the only way that you can really ensure that all of those first impressions that you want to be cast aside is if you look really good and you look like your stuff is expensive. And that's not easy to do. It's not. You got to work out real hard. You got to work on your health. You've got to make money and so on and so forth. But in some cases, you'll be so busy doing all of those things so that you create a good first impression that there's nothing to really back up that first impression. You spent all this time making all this money to make yourself look good, but you haven't done the research into figuring things out. So when people start asking you questions, you're unable to answer them. You know? It's crazy. And it's so freaking difficult. But what is important, I think, coming up with this realization, is at least knowing why we're failing as a truth movement. Most of us are over 40. All right, there are very few young people in this movement because they've all been hijacked by the education system to believe in collectivism, communism, technically technocracy. All right, that's what everybody really believes in. If they don't have a word for it, that's the word, technocracy. That technology is going to rule their lives. All right, and if you don't think technology is ruling your life, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning before you've even so much as taken a piss or made yourself breakfast? You look at your phone, don't you? What's the definition of a cyborg? A cyborg is an organic life form that cannot survive and cannot operate ordinarily without technology. Did you know you were a cyborg? I didn't when I first heard the definition of that term. But that's what we are. We're cybernetic organisms now. And what that means is our humanity, the very thing, like, you know, if you look inside your body, you see these organs, you see these bones, you see these veins and arteries and G proteins or something like that if you live in a low socioeconomic area. But there's a lot of organic things that are supposed to work in a particular way And they're just not working that way anymore. And people wonder why there's massive depression going around, massive anxiety, and people committing suicide, and people getting obese, and people coming up with massive mental disorders, and poverty strickenness, and dependencies. And basically, it's a completely insane manner for an organic life form to be completely controlled and constrained and need the survival of their bodies and their minds to be dictated by technology. Now, this isn't to say that you don't need technology in order to survive. Even ancient man knew this when they created blades out of stones and things of that nature in order to cut things like animal flesh or vegetables, just so that they could eat them. Technology is supposed to be a means for us to be able to survive in an easier fashion. But it's a double-edged sword, because now society is so easy to survive in that people interpret it as being really hard. Isn't that interesting? You know, you hear people who are just like, oh, I wouldn't want to bring a child into this world, you know, it's just too horrible. It's like, bitch, you've got Uber Eats. Okay? It's not like you have to sit in the cave getting black smoke in the face from some fire while your man runs out there and tries to kill a mountain lion with a spear with just him and his mate so that they can come back and actually have something to eat and maybe celebrate by having one of the fangs around your neck to decorate you that they give to you on Valentine's Day or something like that. You don't have to live in the freezing cold being exposed to the elements and worried about a twig snapping in the middle of the night where some predator might snatch your baby. Life is easy. Easy. And because it's so easy, you haven't tested how strong you can possibly become. Had this guy on my show one time, and he was the creator of Biodome. Biodome, where they had all these trees and plants and everything like that, all underneath a dome. This interesting thing happened. The trees, once they got to a certain height, would fall over. They'd just break under their own weight. The wind. Whenever a tree gets blown, it grows stronger to deal with the adversity of the situation provided by wind. They bend, they snap back. The wind has been taken from us, and thus we are breaking under our own weight, ladies and gentlemen. Ease of life is not a good thing. Ease of survival, probably a good thing, but your life, if your survival is easy, should be remarkably difficult. Just to give you a thirst for it at the very least. Because if everything's too easy, and you don't feel like you're being challenged, you won't value life. You won't value those periods of time when you're able to rest and recuperate after a long, hard day, week, month, or several years of work without a break. You really value those times. And principally, it's because of one very important thing, which I think all anarchists really should know about, is the close relationship the human nervous system and brain's pleasure centers and pain centers have. Okay? If you're experiencing pain and hardship, whenever you experience any kind of relief from that pain and hardship, it becomes very pleasurable. But if you're experiencing nothing but comfort and pleasure and easiness, when the pain comes, any kind of pain, even small amounts of it, it'll appear overwhelmingly unbearable. You see, there's that relationship with us. That's why the New World Order has us in a bind, because resisting it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be pleasant, and it's not going to be cheap, neither in terms of lives, or resources, or time, or attention. You're not going to learn how the New World Order works on a 1-minute TikTok video. You're not going to figure out the answers to mankind's infinite question, why are we here, in a 1-minute TikTok video. No. It takes time and attention, mentorship specifically. If you're young and you're listening to this show, and I know that you're not, because young people don't listen to this show. I've had a look at all the things and what have you. Why don't young people listen to the show? Because they're not interested. They want to find out where they fit in life, and if they start figuring out that everything is not all as it seems. I mean, we're 40, 50, 60 years old, some of us, and we don't fit in, do we? And the whole concept of being a teenager is trying to find out where you fit in. Why would conspiracy appeal to them? Oh, great. I get to never fit in because everybody's a brainwashed moron. You see? That's the thing. We're old enough to know from experience that authorities are full of crap, don't serve us, and don't deserve our time or attention or devotion. All right? We're old enough to realize that. Some of us younger than others, but that's as Indiana Jones said, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And you've all suffered, haven't you? Just like me. The hands of the state. The hands of the education system, the medical field, the legal system, the family court system. People come to the truth through the betrayal and the portrayal of lies. Lies by hierarchical organizations and groups of people. Why do you think then that it's very difficult to organize and unite us all? If the one thing that basically unites us is a distrust of hierarchies and groups of individuals getting together. You see? That's what's difficult. It's not impossible. It's just a very hard slog. And we're not even 50% there, right? We might not even be a couple of percent there to be as strong as humanity needs to be as united as humanity needs to be as brazen as mankind must be, to destroy all that which opposes us in our own hearts, to vanquish our own demons before we go out and oppose the demons that have taken over this world. That is the challenge, and that is the only thing that really matters if you want to be free. If you're not free in your mind and in your heart, first, you won't be able to obtain freedom for your body or the body of anybody else that lives in this three-dimensional universe. And George Orwell said, I believe in one of his last interviews, what was the point of portraying in a book this nightmarish future? And he says, if there was a reason for it, the reason is this: to tell people, don't let it happen. It's up to you. And thank you so much for your time and your attention today. You've been listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show.com. You are being brainwashed, and I know. And it's sad. And I know that the chat rooms are full of narcissistic, egotistic, psychopathic, sadistic people who really don't have a future if it doesn't include hurting other people and getting attention for themselves. I know. And I'm sorry about that. Don't let them discourage you. I want to encourage you. Encourage, it means to give courage. Thank you so much. Please go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. Or Eastwood, like go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, make a little donation there. Whether you can start off with a one-off or whether you want to start up an ongoing automatic payment. The show has been going since 2010, officially on the radio waves in the US through AmericanFreedomRadio.com and now through the wonderful people at GroundZero.radio. And I will still be here for as long as I don't get exterminated. So thank you very much, everybody. Again, all those people who have donated, just remember I am in need of people to help on a regular basis because I do have my shit together in certain ways, websites, live streaming, so on and so forth. If you've made a donation, as far as I'm concerned, I have an obligation to you. You have an independent idea or something of that nature, and you don't want to have to learn for years and years in order to be able to figure out how to do it, contact me. Okay, there's a contact page on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and I would love to meet your acquaintance and give you a hand, provided you're not just going to waste my effing time. If you're just going to waste time, you know, and you're not going to okay, Vinny, this is what I want to do, how do I do it? Okay, well, let's start up a call, and you do this, you point on this, you click that, and you drag this in there, you type this in, and so on and so forth. If you're not ready to do that, don't bother. Okay? You're wasting my frickin' time. If you're a donor, I am grateful to you, and I want you to contact me regardless, just so I can thank you in person, have a conversation with you. We're all going through crap, and I know that almost every single time I've had a conversation with somebody who's been listening to this show, they've enjoyed it, and it's given them a high, and they feel better about it. I like doing that for people, even if it drains me. I still can give my energy to people who really needed it right then and there. So be aware that this is how things work. Don't talk yourself out of things. Don't say, oh, Vinny's going to be too busy or whatever. Okay, fine, there you go. I'm too busy. Oh, Vinny will be able to give me at least about 5 minutes of my time. Okay, there you go. Here's 5 minutes. You see? Don't talk yourself out of it. You know, that's how I got such great guests on the show over the years. David Icke and Mark Passio together. Best show I've ever done. I don't think I'll ever frickin' top that, frankly. You know, I can die happy because I did that show. And it was the best show, like, forever. Nobody has ever gotten these two together. I did. You know how I did that? I asked them. That's all you got to do, guys. You want something? Ask for it, and it shall be received. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you again next time at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
Gentlemen, I've brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem. It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood Show. The Vinny Eastwood Show. Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood Show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
You see, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our scumbaggery, which we call necessary.
Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Winnie Eastwood?
Absolutely. He's a major impediment to our planet, and it's how are we going to get rid of him?
We could poison his water supply.
But we've done that already.
Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we?
But I am still glad, I mean, even if I am not really the overlord, and I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world, you know, penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yes, well, thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise, I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem is probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96, you see.